back to my channel. In today's video, we will be doing a couple of anniversary cards. We're going to do some watercoloring, but we're going to do what I'm going to call reverse watercoloring, in the sense that we are not going to be watercoloring the actual image we're stamping. We're going to be coloring the background. So what I'm showing you here is some CANSON XL watercolor paper that I've just cut down. I end up switching that out for some STONEHENGE black watercolor paper. Also, we're going to do 2 cards today. I have a WaterBrush pen that I purchased off of Amazon. I've got some Ranger gold embossing powder, as well as all my other little tools and gadgets that I use to have successful watercoloring. I've got a Spellbinders stamp set here. This is Sending Floral Wishes. And I'm going to use that large floral like swag, and there's an individual flower that I'm also going to be using later on just to kind of fill in some gaps. There's my VERSAMARK ink. That is what I'm going to be using to do my heat embossing today. And then I have some Art Philosophy. This is the metallic accents, and I have swatched that out on some black paper. And I'm going to use a couple of colors from here. But you can use any watercolors you have. They don't have to be metallic if you're going to do it on regular watercolor paper, but if you are going to do it on a black watercolor paper like I do today, you definitely want to use a metallic. You'll just get better results. Otherwise, you won't even be able to see your watercoloring. I am going to go ahead and prep the surface. I have already removed the large floral swag from that stamp set, and I have prepped the surface with my anti-static powder tool, brushed that around, and I'm going to stamp this in VERSAMARK ink. I'm going to stamp everything twice, just so I can ensure I have a really good impression and plenty of ink down to catch all of my embossing powder. What I do to one panel, I'm going to do to the other panel. Now, these panels are 2 different sizes just because the paper pads are 2 different sizes, and I just kind of cut them in half, both directions, length and widthwise. So I am not able to exactly stamp everything in the same spot, but the concept is the same. You treat your surface with anti-static powder, stamp with heat embossing ink. So in my case, VERSAMARK, but there's tons of clear sticky inks on the market. Stamp it until you feel like you've got a good impression, and then sprinkle on your embossing powder of choice. Like I said, today I'm going to be using some Ranger Gold. That is my favorite. I know that Altenew has a gold, and Brutus Monroe has a gold. This is the gold I have, and I really like the tone of it. When it runs out, which embossing powders last you a very long time, but when this one runs out, I may try the Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder. That is the one that Christina Werner uses a lot, and if it's good enough for Christina Werner, it is more than good enough for me. So here's that STONEHENGE black watercolor paper. I have seen Christina Werner use another version. I picked up this version based off a video she did a long time ago, but I guess recently she has found another one that she has been using, and I don't remember what it's called or the video it was associated with, but there are a couple on the market. This is the one I have. It is a very delicate paper, and that was something that she mentioned in her videos, and that is something that I have found using it. It is a very delicate paper, in the sense that even like the lowest tack tape tears it. So the sticky mat that I have it on has been well loved and well used, and so it doesn't tear it, but the tape I use later to kind of hold down a die, that does tear it. So I'm very conscious of where I put any adhesive on this at all. So each time I am treating the section with my anti-static powder, and then I go through and I add my VERSAMARK ink, stamp it down twice, and then pour on my embossing powder. And my goal is just to kind of fill in all of the space on all of these panels here. We're going to do reverse watercoloring. So what I mean by that is we're going to end up coloring the background and not the images themselves. So here you see me just going ahead and heat setting that. I had my heat gun heating off to the side. We are going to be applying heat to this several times, so you are going to get some warping, but having a really hot heat gun does kind of cut down on the amount of warping you may have. So that is something that I definitely suggest, is making sure that your heat gun is nice and hot before you bring it to your paper. One thing I will say when I heat emboss on this Stonehenge paper is it does not react the same as when I heat emboss on the CANSON. So the CANSON, when you heat emboss, it almost gives you like a little well. It gives you like a raised surface, the heat embossing powder does. But with this with this Stonehenge, it almost like melts into the paper. And I don't think I'm applying too much heat. I don't think I'm overheating this embossing powder. I think that's just the nature of embossing powder on this particular substrate here, on this particular paper. Because I'm very conscious, like the second I see it turn, I move it. And so I don't think I'm applying too much heat. I just think that's how heat embossing powder reacts on that particular paper. So that's something to keep in mind, is if you do decide that you want to actually color in the images and you're hoping to get like those nice wells that heat embossing gives you, you're not going to get that on the black Stonehenge watercolor paper. You're just not. So I'm going to go through and finish stamping out all of these images, just trying to kind of fill in all of the open space. And then I'm going to show you what I do to just kind of really fill in any open spaces that I have. So what I've done is I've taken that smaller floral image from that Sending Floral Wishes stamp set, and I am just free range stamping it with an acrylic block. Again, just trying to fill in any open spaces just so that I have a complete, almost looks like patterned paper look. So I do the same thing. I treat with my anti-static powder. I stamp it really well and then go ahead, pour on that gold embossing powder and heat set. And I did that with both backgrounds. So for the black and gold, I'm going to color in the background with gold. So I have a water brush pen here that has water inside of a little well, inside kind of the barrel of the brush. And all I've done is taken a few drops of that water and swirl it around in the particular color that I want to use. I do that until it's kind of a thicker consistency, but still fairly fluid. And then I'm just going to paint in the background. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can just see. Again, I'm not coloring in the actual floral images that we heat embossed. I'm coloring in the black background. And I'm just using that gold. I felt like it was a really good match to the gold embossing powder, but you could always do something that had a little more contrast, and we will do that on the white and gold, the CANSON, which that white and gold and the black and gold look beautiful just as they are, but I wanted to use my watercolors today. That's not a medium that I use very often, and so I did want to use them today. I am not very good at watercoloring. It is not something that I have practiced enough, and so if you are hesitant to try watercoloring, or it's a medium that you want to just see if you enjoy, but you're not super confident yet, you want to just kind of dip your toes in the water, no pun intended, try this technique. See what you think about it. It's a good way to just kind of zone out. It's not hard, it's not technical. I'm not doing any shading. I am literally just applying the pigment down. But this is a good way to kind of test the waters, see if you enjoy it. There's no pressure. If you get out of the lines, it's not a big deal. But this is a good way to kind of see, okay, how much water do I need? How much pigment do I need? Do I like a water brush? And how much water do I need with that? What kind of size brush do I like? Would I prefer an actual watercolor brush and not a watercolor pen that already has water in the barrel of it? Would I prefer a traditional watercolor water brush? It's just a really good way to kind of test this out, play without pressure. You can always get cheaper, more inexpensive watercolors. I got this particular set from Hobby Lobby when they were all like half off. So it is a really stress-free, relaxing way to kind of play. Use a medium that maybe you don't give much love to, or is a medium that you're trying to see if it's something that you would enjoy, that you would like to invest in. I know that Christina Werner often uses, as far as metallics are concerned, she uses Yuli watercolors. I don't use I don't use watercolor enough to justify that investment. However, the colors are absolutely stunning. But I was able to get these kind of results, and I was very pleased with them with a less expensive set, and I was pleased with those. So this is this one. It's almost dry. There's one spot that's a little, it's not quite dry yet. So let me zoom back out. And now I'm going to move on to the blue. So now you see that I am actually using a red. I thought I was going to use this red. I thought it would be a little, I thought it'd be a different hue than it is. But as you can tell, I tested the color on red, or excuse me, on black cardstock, and I'm applying it to white or to a cream. So it looks completely different. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't like this at all. It almost looks orange. And I was not about that life. So we're gonna switch gears. And when I was making this, I had my parents in mind, but I was like, man, their colors were like a burgundy. This looks orange, and I didn't like it. And I didn't feel like mixing colors, which you absolutely could do. I just did not feel like mixing colors. So I'm going to squeeze the barrel of this water brush pen onto my flour sack cloth here just to kind of get rid of that pigment there. And I'm going to apply clean water to this background, and I'm going to blot. You see me brushing, don't do that. I didn't rip my paper this time, but you do run the risk of ripping your paper or kind of pilling it when you sweep like that. So just blot. Do as I say, not as I do. And I'm just going to keep applying clean, clear water to this and blotting. I'm using a different spot on that flour sack cloth each time I blot. And you're going to see that I get most of that pigment off of there. And I decided I was going to do blue. I toyed with the idea of doing kind of that pink color. I toyed with the idea of doing like a teal and more of a sagey color that's on there. I toyed with a lot of ideas. I ended up going with blue because blue is my favorite color. And I wanted to do the blue, so I did. So again, I do the same thing. I just squeeze a few drops of water into there just to kind of prime it. And then I swirl it around until I get the consistency that I want. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to color in the background of this particular background image. And here it is all watercolored in. It looks really pretty. I was really pleased and kind of surprised by how this one turned out. It is not completely dry yet. I'm going to set that off to the side to dry while I work on sentiments and card bases and all that jazz. But it is almost dry and it looks really pretty. For the sentiment, I wanted to say happy anniversary. I just wanted to keep it very simple. So I have this Altenew ROSA GALICA stamp set, and I have just scraps of the coordinating watercolor paper, and I'm going to stamp out the happy and anniversary. The happy actually comes with its own coordinating die, which is one of the reasons why I chose it, and I thought it was a good size also. So we're going to do the same process. We're just going to stamp, treat with our anti-static powder, stamp with VERSAMARK ink, and sprinkle on that same Ranger Gold embossing powder. And then I'm going to cut them out with their coordinating dies. As you can see, I'm trying to show here that even though I did not apply any of my tape to my actual image I was going to use, you can still see that it tore that cardstock a little bit. So that is something to be very conscious of when you're using that Stonehenge. So I went ahead and prepped my card bases, stamped my coordinating, with love on the back. Both of those are Paper Studio, as is this gold mirror cardstock here. And I just cut the floral panels down to 3 3/4 by 5, and then the gold is 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to glue the floral watercolor pieces just straight to the gold. And then I'm going to actually pop all of these up on foam, fun foam. I'm just trying to kind of use some fun foam that I've had in my, and just kind of work through it and get rid of it so that I can start using actual scrap pieces of cardstock for dimension instead of this foam. The foam is lighter, but the cardstock will help me go through my scraps and is actually more sturdy. So all I'm going to do is apply glue to the back of these and then glue them onto their coordinating card bases. I took some instant dimension foam tape from Altenew and applied it to the back of the happy and anniversary, and then I peeled off the backer and went ahead and placed those on the cards where I thought they were the most visible. You could apply some vellum to the back of these if you feel like the sentiment is disappearing. I thought it was visible enough, so I didn't mess with that. I am going to finish off these cards with some pearls, flat back black pearls on the black and gold, and then some gold pearls on the blue and gold. Those just came from my stash. They were purchased from Amazon, and then these cards will be complete. So I appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you so much. I hope you feel inspired, and give this reverse watercoloring technique a try, particularly if you're a little nervous or new to watercoloring, or just trying to give love to a medium that you don't use very often. So again, thank you so much for spending time with me, and we will see you next time.